Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Total German Shepherd podcast. Today, we're joined again by Mr. Channing Sheets after his historic appointment at the Westminster as the German Shepherd breed judge. And he's here to share his thoughts and reflect upon how the event went. So, welcome back again, sir.
Well, glad to have you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So, stepping into the ring at the Madison Square Garden, what was going through your mind as you're going into the ring to judge the German Shepherd at the Westminster?
The long and the short of it is this is what I've trained for my whole life,
Great.
and it has to be correct. So
Yes. Yes. I mean, I have to say you were very impressive in there, and I love the suit, by the way.
it was popular, quite popular.
I even sent you a message when I saw it on the live feed. I was like, yeah, looking good. So, how did the pressure and the energy and the expectations compare to what you had imagined beforehand?
So there was no pressure judging my own breed. This is what we
Sure.
do day in, day out, whether you
Yeah.
are ringside, evaluating breeding stock in the middle of the ring, judging, looking at puppies for their potential. This is just what we do.
Right.
So it was pretty much business as usual. The other breeds present a challenge because you question yourself, but you spent so long studying them and you judged them on a number of occasions that you just have to be confident in your ability to execute. So
Could it be something like you're influenced by a trend? Like there's a certain type of course that you like as a personal preference. We're all human. We all have a certain type preference, right? As far as the German Shepherd goes, because it's your own breed. Do you think there is something that you're hunting for in the other breeds, or would you be more biased or unbiased when you're judging other breeds?
I find that my mentors and breeders that I talk to in other breeds are more focused on aesthetic aspects of breed type. This is
Yes,
proper head shape or ear set or tail set than we are. We're more about
sure.
the functional attributes. So, if the parts don't work, it doesn't matter how pretty it is. We already have
Right,
that.
exactly. Yes. And you had some really pretty dogs in the ring, I must say. So, going into evaluating the entry, what stood out immediately about the depth, type, conditioning of the dogs that were presented to you?
I did not expect it. So typically when you go to an all breed show, the quality isn't the same as it is the specialties. It isn't the same as what you would see at a national. Literally, I walked in there and was shocked to see what I saw. I saw multiple best in specialty show winners, multiple best in show winners, many US selects at our national, a US Grand Victor. So it was just like dogs like you would see at a national specialty.
The highest level of the AKC Shepherd dogs were congregated in the Westminster this year, that's for sure. And were there structural or temperament trends that you found encouraging or on the flip side concerning?
So temperament was pretty much a non-issue, other
Yes.
than maybe one exhibit. Um, I would expect that at that level, and for these to be seasoned specials and champions and not class dogs who have been shown for some time.
Sure.
By
Yeah.
the time they get to this point, they wouldn't have made it if they had an issue.
Right.
So
Of course.
temperaments were good. I was
Right.
happy to be able to do a temperament test at an Albury show, and so that Albury judges could see it. And I actually got a lot of questions about that after the fact, which is why I ended up making a Facebook
Yes.
post because I had a number of
Yes.
questions about you did this temperament test. Are all judges required to do it? They used to be, they no longer are because some people were doing
Right.
it wrong.
Right.
And as we've discussed before, how you proceed makes or breaks whether you force a dog to be reactive.
Sure. Yeah, of
Um,
course.
some people do it intentionally in order to elicit reaction.
Yes, sir.
I want to treat them like a normal person would if they just walked up to them. And
Yes.
they don't have to be my friend. They just have to
Sure.
tolerate me, acknowledge me. We don't have to make eye contact the whole time. I don't expect that. That's not
Yes.
normal.
Yes, sir.
So treat them like you would, like you walk up to a dog in the park. And
Right.
the interesting thing is, we used to years ago have this loose lead temperament video where the handler will hold the tip of a 12-foot leash and the judge would walk up to them. And I'm like, so here's the thing about that. If that dog decides to freak out and they have 12 foot of leash and they're just sort of wandering around, if they walk around you or freak out and wrap your legs up, you're going down.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's a safety issue. So that's not smart.
Yes.
You don't have to have 9, 10 feet of slack in a leash to be able to tell when that dog leans into its handlers or eyes roll back in his head and it tucks his
Sure.
tail.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
You know,
Right.
and you don't have to make a big deal out of it. You just know. And you just
Yes.
make your way to the end of the line.
Right. Absolutely. And it's also interesting when you see the Albury judges make a little bit of a dramatic show of a temperament test when they're doing it. And then, it's like a little bit more exaggerated. The motions are a little bit more exaggerated. And that would make a leery dog even more so.
Correct.
Yeah.
So to give you an example, I have a puppy who's 9 months old, and we're in the phase where this dog has never been shown. We're taking
Yeah.
it to the local all breed show just to be in an environment because there's no simulating that environment. And
No, there
even
isn't.
when we
Truly.
our dogs that we take to specialties, they're outside somewhere in a
Yeah.
field,
Hmm.
and there's not the pressure of the echoing sounds off the
Yeah.
walls and the collapsing
Indeed.
crates and people clapping and screaming in the ring next door.
Right.
It's an entirely different world. So if you acclimate them to the worst case scenario, the pressure cookie, when they go to any other dog show outside or whatever, they're not going to have a problem. So we're just walking around, no pressure, making it fun, learning to love the environment, to take streets from strangers, get pets, some people go over her. Everything's all well and good. And a friend of mine who's an Albury judge, he doesn't judge shepherds, but he does best in show. He's asked me about temperament tests. Once again, this is a question that commonly comes up. So I say,
Yes, sir.
this is why I teach people to do it this way. And I said, she just walked up to him and she's licking his hand and he's petting her or whatever. He gives her cookies. And I said, the thing you don't want to do is you don't want, what happens a lot is like collie breeder judges and shelties because you go over the head sort of like this. And so those dogs are used to it because they train them for that.
Right. Absolutely.
It's a lot of hands-on examining of the nuances of the head.
Yeah.
You don't do that. So if
No.
you come at their face like this, you're going to get a reaction of going backwards. Does that
Yes.
necessarily mean that dog is a spook?
No.
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 It means you are proceeding in a way that's not normal. We don't do that. If we are
Absolutely.
examining a bite, we're coming underneath. So if you
Yeah.
put your hand underneath and secure that dog's chin, and then you grab the muzzle and you're manipulating teeth or whatever, they're used to that. They expect
Yeah.
that. They know
Yeah.
what that means.
Right.
If you pat them in the side of the head or underneath, they're used to that because normal people would do that. But if you're
Yes.
pounding on the side, like the last time you showed the punching at the face, or you're lunging at their face,
Yeah.
you're gonna
Yes.
get. So after this dog had been around like 10 to 12 people and she's having the time of her life, a lady I used to know and used to show German Shepherds walks up to her, gets down on her knees, crouches in front of her face, is making staring in her eyes, making direct contact, and the dog makes just sort of squares off with her and is making eye contact, and then she proceeds to go like this, and the
Oh
dog,
my God.
and so and so he looks at me out of the corner. My judge friend is sitting there,
Yeah.
and he's like, and I knew the light bulb went off. That's exactly what you were talking about. You just watch this dog now have a problem, and someone's creating a problem in a puppy. Then she
Yep.
says, "Oh, let me grab the leash and walk it away so I can work with it." Absolutely not. This is the introduction of an impressionable young dog to the show
Yes.
world who's having the time of her life, and you are creating a problem that doesn't need to exist by
Absolutely.
exactly what I was teaching him not to do. So don't
Yeah.
do it. So then she
Yes.
walks away after I told her she couldn't take my dog's leash. And he goes, I don't know what she was thinking, basically. And he's like,
Right.
what you just told me played out in real life. And so
Right.
this is, I tell people this. There's a way to do it, and
Yep.
it's not the way a lot of people do it.
It's very simple. It's like if you won't let it do somebody do it to your child, don't let them do it to your dog. It's very
And what
simple.
what happens when a stranger walks up to a 2-year-old and tries to pet them on the head and grab them? They hide behind mommy and daddy's leg.
Exactly the same reaction.
That's not normal. It's just not.
Exactly. So you're judging under real world pressure, essentially. I mean, of course, you don't feel the pressure with the German Shepherd, but again, there's a little bit of stagecraft to it that you've been doing it for so long, so you're well versed with it. So how did you balance the written standard with the dogs that you had in front of you that very day?
So, like we talked about last time, looking for the best package. So, the one with the
Yes.
most positive attributes, they all have something wrong with them, and you can nitpick them to death. And I have to say, when you have really high quality, like we talked about,
Yes.
whether you're at a national, you're at Westminster, you're
Hmm.
at wherever you be, you're going to have to nitpick. So, but the response is not, oh, you have this wrong with you, you have this wrong
Yep.
with you, you have this
Yep.
wrong with you. This one's closer to the standard because this is
Yeah.
better. They're better in this
Yes.
way. They're better in that way. They're better in
Yeah.
that way. And that's what I found myself doing instead of
Hmm.
like, sort of like annihilating them by trying to find out everything that's wrong with them.
Right. Yeah. Going away from false judging and actually looking at their virtues and comparing them. Absolutely. And also, I would like you to address how you were so efficiently managing the ring. The ring management was brilliant. It was so fast. It was like it was like a factory, like a assembly plan. It was just like one after another, and there was no chaos. Everything was super organized, despite being such a big number of dogs in a very restricted space. So, can you please talk a little bit about that for the people who are not in the know and maybe aspiring judges to do it the way you did it?
So depending on the breed, depending on the entry, like in Aussies, I had the biggest entry, so I divided them into multiple groups,
Sure.
and they came
Yes.
in their respective groups, and I had to make cuts from that. In
Yes.
German Shepherds, the challenge of Westminster is there are other external influences, and I got yelled at a couple times for this, not by like people or
Yeah.
judges or anything like that, or superintendents or AKC reps. It was by the photography staff because obviously we're trying, and that's something we don't normally deal with in Normal Dog Show. We're
Yes.
trying to make it accessible to
Yes.
people at home that are watching. We're trying to
Yes.
make it accessible to all the people who couldn't afford to go, or the dog show
Yes.
people who stayed behind because they couldn't make it on a plane and make it there, whatever. And I get that, right? It's a huge marketing tool for our sport.
Yes.
So with that comes that responsibility. So they
Yes.
wanted me to line up on one side. And as
You're
you
on
know,
national TV for Christ's sake.
because the camera was in one corner. Now here's
Yes.
my issue with that is what do we use our long sides for?
Yes.
Gating.
Yes.
And so in other breeds, it's about standing model and look at the silhouette and blah, blah, blah. We
Right.
don't care about that. We
No.
want to see them move, right?
Yes.
And so if you take out a long side, mm,
Yeah.
and so to see them stand, I mean, the people at home could see them and how they were placed and stuff, and sort of kind of what I was looking at, which was good because then they could follow it. But you miss out on a lot of the gating. So
Oh
for
yeah.
us die-hard shepherd people, taking out one long side is kind of a problem. But
Yes.
camera was in one corner. So that I told all the exhibitors, I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to work for one side because we have to play to the camera because
Hmm.
we want the people at home to see. And everybody got it. So they understood why we kept stopping on that one side.
Right. 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 And were there moments where you had to go deeper into your decision making process more than you expected?
Yes.
Talk about that. Let's please.
So the girls were probably deeper in quality,
Sure.
and
Sure.
that's always hard because then you have to start nitpicking. So I made some pretty harsh first cuts, right?
Sure.
And then after that, then I had animals that I really wanted to take a closer look at, and so
Yeah.
I gated them. And then once I gated them, then we started to play with proportions and mid pieces and things like that, and kind of rule out a
Hmm.
couple others. Um, there were a couple that they took a higher step in front than I typically like. I
Sure.
don't like a lot of
Lifting,
lifting.
paddling,
I want it the
extending.
forward.
Yes.
Everything should be moving you forward, right?
Yes.
Instead of
Indeed.
displacing laterally, instead of displacing
Yep.
vertically, I want as little of that as possible. So there were some that were eliminated because of that. And then we got down to like the top six or so bitches, and we
Yeah.
were working from there. Dogs was a little bit easier. Um,
Hmm.
the top dogs were all standouts.
Right.
And then there were others for other reasons that I didn't want to play with because I knew that the hard part would be awarding award of merits, and I knew it was going to be mostly bitches. It's
Right.
in our breed, it's almost always mostly bitches because they're better.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. And also the males take a lot longer to fill out and develop properly. So it
Yeah.
has to be like literally like a 6, 7 year old male that has reached peak maturity, has had a ton of breedings, as opposed to a female who can, have a litter at 2 and look quite finished at around 3, 3.5.
Now hold that thought. So the one that won,
Yes, I was
we're
gonna say. I was
we're
gonna say that's where I was going.
we're evaluating breeding stock, right? And when she
Yes,
came in, she's lovely. You can't
yes,
miss her.
yes.
Her condition was a little bit softer and she was a little bit heavier. And I just
Sure.
thought she was a little bit heavier in weight and whatever. I'm like,
Yes, sir.
And then after she was awarded the top awards,
Let me interrupt you there. Let me interrupt you real quick. So you said the condition was a little bit softer. So the people who don't understand that, could you please expand on what dry and firm is and a softer condition is?
so a little touch softer over the top, a little bit thicker in the waist, a little bit deeper in the belly. So not
Yes.
much in the way of tuck up. And so I
Right.
was like, is she just a little heavy or what? And I didn't know. I mean, obviously she had the most virtue, so she ended up winning. And then after the
Sure.
fact, I found out she was pregnant. Not only
Right.
is was she pregnant, she was well into her pregnancy,
Oh, that
and
explains it.
this is litter number two. So for her to
Right.
look like that, be able to compete like that in that shape, in
Yes.
wealth after on litter number two, she deserved everything she got.
Right. And then again, so let me lead into my question now. It's like the critical question was the best of breed. So what made you choose the female over the male? Because the male was an absolute standout too. Like when he walked into the ring, it's like, it's like this was the one as soon as you saw him move. And then what made you choose the female over the male for the best of breed? Because he was equally as glamorous, even though he was a young male.
So they're a little different. So
Sure.
she's a little bit lower stationed,
Yes.
which I tend to like because of her excess weight because she was pregnant and she was a little bit deeper. She almost looked a little short on leg, which isn't
Sure.
necessarily the case, but it's the
Sure.
carrying puppies down low.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the differences are, and this is nitpicking because he's absolutely a spectacular dog and he
Yeah.
deserves all the top awards. But
Yeah.
I'd say she has a darker almond eye.
Sure.
He his ear just gives a little bit waving at you when he's in motion. She has
Gotcha.
solid ear cartilage.
Right.
He has a little hook to his tail, and our
Hmm.
standard says only a fault to the fact that it mars the overall appearance, but she did not
Right.
have that. Once again, it's the one
Right.
who's closer to
It's
the
the
center.
process of elimination essentially at that point because the dogs are such high quality overall.
She had a little bit tighter foot, and he took a little bit bigger stride. He was harder over the top.
Yes.
Now I know why he was harder over the top because she was very pregnant, so
Yes.
hormones and all the other things affect
Right.
that. But he was a little bit harder over the top. He took a little bit
Yeah.
better, bigger stride. The make or break for me was probably the down and back. So at a
Gotcha.
faster speed, he's good.
Hmm.
At a slower speed, it takes a little bit to get together. At any speed, I don't care whether she's walking or a slow gait or a moderate speed or a fast gait, she is on the money all the time.
Right. Right.
And so, in terms of soundness, that was just it. Because the
Right.
standard says faults the gate from the front, rear, or side are be considered very serious faults. And
Yes.
at a full trot, I don't fault him at all. He's good going away. At a
Yes.
slower speed, it takes a little bit to get it together because he has a little bit bigger hock. So
Sure.
she doesn't have that. So
Sure.
that's where she beat him out
And also maybe in a year or so when he's developed further as a male, as a stallion, that
because
could
he's
go
young.
away potentially exactly because he's got more musculature to fill that big frame of his.
Yes.
So what would have been needed to be different, more different into the male to change your judgment the other way? Were there two or three major key pieces that you would have, could have fundamentally altered in the outcome in performance? Or do you feel the margin was super narrow or was it decisive for you?
Between the dog and the bitch or the
Yes.
males.
In the
Uh,
males.
in the males, he was a standout because he was the
Yes.
most dog. He was
Yes.
the typiest dog.
Right.
So he had a better headpiece. He beat out more rib spring the other two males because of those things. There
Right.
was one a little bit longer
Hmm.
that maybe could have traveled a touch more on a foot, had a little better. His tail touched his little hock a little bit too much for me, and I
Sure.
can
Not
nitpick
an
it.
not an active enough tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one was a harder, drier dog. All the
Sure.
parts work, good down
Hmm.
and back,
Hmm.
good mind. I would have prettied him up a bit and maybe
Yes.
beefed him
Sure.
a bit, if that makes
Sure.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
For sure.
he was more than enough dog. He wasn't as, and once again, it's close to the standard, right? He was more than enough dog to meet the standard. He
Yes.
wasn't as much dog as the dog in front of him.
Yes. Right. 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 There's like always like this is the pinnacle of the all breed shows. So the dog has they're all the dogs are obviously like we mentioned are standouts in the breed because they're there at the Westminster at an invitational show. But then it's like the extra, the dog that's winning is always it's got that little bit extra.
Mm-hmm.
And so were there any challenge dogs that challenged your assumptions that you had already preconceived notions as you'd gone into the show, and then you're like, okay, this is like making me reconsider my judgment, or just without mentioning specific names, were there dogs whose movement, proportions, or presence, of course, the female we spoke, but that made you like stop and think, or were there elements that separated the exceptional dogs from the good ones that still made the cut?
Rears.
Hmm.
So there were some where I don't like a lot of upright. So like imagine
Sure.
like, and this is I'm not saying they're hyenas, but example, a hyena
Yes.
is kind
Yes.
of high wittered, high on
Yes.
leg, and the legs kind of dangle from the body.
Sure.
I don't like that at all. I
Right.
like a dog that can is one piece, can drop
Yes.
down and move forward, right?
Right.
And so there were some that there was
Close
a
to the
lot
ground.
they were way up high and there was a lot of
Yeah.
pawing at the ground and some of them would lift the hock and come down and it was a lot of up and down and a lot less forward propulsion if that makes
Sure.
sense. And so that weeds you out really quickly.
Right.
There's no place for that in my world.
Also, noticed some of the handlers were trying to always keep the leash really close to
Mhm.
the skull, to the jaw, the lower jaw, and that really didn't make any sense to me because it completely alters the picture of the breed that you're looking for. That's what you would how you would show a Doberman, not a German Shepherd.
Well, good handlers will do that sometimes in order to create an outline that otherwise wouldn't exist on its own. Either the dog dumps its
Sure.
head or they
Right.
level out or they kind of fall apart, right?
Right.
So usually there's a reason for it. Not always.
Yes.
Some all breed handlers tend to do that a bit. And the disadvantage is what it does to the foreassembly because sometimes they have to have the normal head carriage, right? At an
Yes.
angle
Yep.
forward so they can open up and lay into that shoulder.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you get like,
Yeah. You're
come
just
up,
doing distance.
put down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now we talk about the breed on the world stage. So we're just I just saw the numbers from the crops today. There's 2,800 dogs or 2,800 plus dogs in the herding group this year.
Wow.
And did judging at Westminster strengthen or shift your views on the current state of the American Shepherd?
I think we're pretty good. I mean, there's always room for improvement, right? There are things
Of
that I
course,
improved.
yeah,
There, there were some that were a little narrow and slab-sided. We need a little bit better spring of rib. Some, like I
sure,
said, could benefit for some breed type. Um, Overall pigment was good, reasonable bone and substance, right? Um, Enough. Some of them were a little bit moderate without being too cumbersome. Maybe I would have liked a little more. A lot of them were narrow here
yeah,
between the eyes and the muzzle.
mhm,
They didn't have the depth of muzzle and they didn't have the underjaw. But
sure,
that's a common thing in American dogs. There were a
right,
couple that were shorter in croup with a high tail carriage.
sure,
Um, there were some that didn't have the rear follow through, which is one of my pet peeves. I want to see you get under yourself and fluidly follow through behind and not
yes,
hit the wall on the backstroke.
right.
And
Just extend further the last bit. Yeah. So I want to ask you a question. So this you said a couple of things that are well-established jargon in the dog world, but a lot of people on the outside wouldn't understand. So slab-sided, could you talk a little bit about what that means and can you talk about the spring of rib and why that's important?
So the Springer rib is important to the heart and lung function. And
Mhm.
so in a tending dog, from the spine, the rib cage comes out. You don't want it
Yes.
to be a barrel because you don't want it
Right.
to interfere with those legs coming back during the gait, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
you don't want it to be flat like this. You don't want them to
Hmm.
be narrow because you need heart and lung function.
Yes.
So it's a delicate balance. You want it to
Right.
spring from the spine. And as it gets down towards the elbow, it comes in just a little bit so the elbow can clear fluidly,
Right.
easily, without
Right.
interfering and getting this kind of stuff going on.
Right. 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 And that's obviously because we need bigger lung capacity so the dog can have more endurance.
Mhm.
And what was the things that you saw in the ring? So we talked about, the faults that you saw in the dogs. Let's talk about what was that you saw in the ring that made you hopeful for the future.
Transmission is better.
Nice.
We have fewer multiple pieces, and they seem to be one piece. You may have part that works better than the other, but
Sure.
at least it kind of holds together and moves across the ground instead of over the ground and up and down and lateral
Right.
displacement and all the other
Right.
aberrations you can get.
And what did you see reaffirm long-standing concerns?
We talked about croups before, and we talked about some of the short croups and
Yes.
sort of stuck on tails. Heads, always a problem in American dogs. Um, Bites and teeth overall were good. Backs overall were good. Rib spring was a problem in some of the slab-sided ones. A few of them had foot problems. Um, Hang on, I made a couple notes. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to tell you. Uh, Upper arms, short upper arms. some long hocks. There were a few that had tails that kind of just bounced on the hock, arrested a little bit too much for me, which is one of my
Right.
personal pet peeves.
Right.
Uh, body length, but that's always been an American problem. We need to shorten them up and get back to normal
But it's
proportions.
also German problems, not just it's more so, yeah, more and more in the show dogs in Germany as well.
And then that lifting in the rear, I don't know where that came from. We used to not really have that problem. The
Sure.
lifting of the hock, placing it down, and then falling through behind.
Right. So this is representing the breed at the highest visibility. I mean, it's like we said, it's on national television. As someone who's deeply tied to the German Shepherd Dog Club of America and as a integral and cohesive part of the education committee, how did you feel this was carrying the breed's reputation at such a public stage?
Well, overall, they got to see good dogs that most of the time they will never in their lives get to judge at all breeds. So that
Right.
made me very happy. So they know
That's
what a good German
fantastic.
Shepherd looks like now.
Yes, sir.
They know what a temperament test can be instead of all
Yes.
the ways that they do it that may result
Yes.
in bad behaviors for the dog or somebody getting bit. Just be
Yes.
normal. Um, that's pretty much it. They got to see a normal ring procedure. Like I barely touched them, and you
Right.
shouldn't have to, other than looking at
Yes.
mouths and checking tail for ankylosis, maybe where that whether a shoulder blade is in that coat, and maybe an up arm. Other than that, the rest of it is all movement. Watch them gait.
Right.
You can't
Absolutely.
make up a decision, take them around again. You still
Right.
can't make a decision, take them around a third time. Keep going
Yes.
until spend your time gating these dogs. We're never
Yes.
going to be mad at you for running the hell out of us. We're just not.
Right. It's always funny when I see these judges like literally giving these dogs massages as they're feeling the back, the shoulders, and the
Yeah,
rears. It's like all of this can just be sorted out by just seeing the dog move. You don't need to do any of that. So right you are.
absolutely.
And then did memories of a bit of a personal question, did the memories of your mentors or certain dogs from your past factor into the emotional weight of the moment?
No, I do what I
No.
do. You put me in there and I'm going to start dissecting them. That's what I do.
Right. No, I'm not talking about the actual ring. I'm talking about like
There were
started in
no,
Indiana, now we're here.
I am as stubborn can be. There is no external influence that can affect my decision making. I just sort of sort through them. That's what I do.
Right. That's awesome. So behind the scenes, any observations backstage that captured the spirit of the event for you or told you something about the exhibitors and the dogs?
The exhibitors have the hardest time. The logistics
Yeah.
of getting out of there. There were some
Yeah.
people who couldn't get there because there were embargoes on flights because it was just too darn cold.
Right.
So
Yeah.
some of them at the
Massive
last minute,
snowstorms.
like the Best in Show winner, he had to drive that bitch across country or they would have never got there because
Oh
they
my
couldn't get on a
gosh.
plane.
What a lovely
Imagine if
bitch
that
he
didn't
was too.
happen.
I know.
So there was a lot of adversity for a lot of people, and they dedicated people, and they still made the trip. And I was very impressed by that. And for it to be the 150th celebration, I mean, they put out all the stops, right? I mean,
Yeah.
every venue, every event, there are all these side events and parties and stuff was exquisite. The people were wonderful. Everybody was happy. What you don't, I mean, I've been as a spectator before, and you don't
Yes,
see
sir.
the inner workings because you're not behind the scenes walking back
Yes.
there where the judges
Yes.
are or whatever. And just the logistics of the media spectacle that it
It's a
is and the
circus.
timing of things. It's like when I learned something. So hopefully one day I can judge a group there. But like if you judge a
Right.
group there, you get 1 minute to go over a dog. And by the time that
Right.
guy's done announcing, you better be almost done with your down and back and on to the
Oh
next
yeah.
one. Like,
Oh yeah.
and in a normal dog show, you get 2 minutes. There are all these things driven by the news networks and the media that
Yes.
change how we, even like I was telling you, my ring procedure, lining the dogs up on one side for the camera, like the way we do things is entirely different. There's
Right.
other external pressures that aren't just your interpretation of the standard, your application of the standard, your evaluation of the dogs. You follow AKC policies and procedures. There's all these other things that factor into it that I
Yeah.
didn't realize.
I mean, it's like a really well-oiled machine, and just looking at the live streams that they've got live streams of every single breed going on at the same time. They've got multiple cameras. They've got the website. They're just bang on everything, updating. And it's, I think for me, it's absolutely the best run event in the entire world. And the way they're on it with the media is just, it's breathtaking for me
I
personally.
I agree
And
there.
yeah, and then as far as guidance for the fantasy goes, after judging Westminster, what do you want breeders to keep front and center and keep working on?
Heads, um, temperaments were good, but once again, like I said, it's all trained specials. Only the
Yes,
best of the best are going to be there on the mentally
yes.
stable. So always keep that in mind. Overall soundness, croups, the rib spring, those were some of the things that I think we could work on.
And what should novice exhibitors that want to present dogs at that stage, who aspire to get there, what do those exhibitors, in your opinion, need to understand about presenting the German Shepherd dog at the highest level when there's so little time? You know, like in specialties, there's a lot more time to look at the dogs. There's a lot more space for the dogs to present themselves. What can those all breed and those young exhibitors take away, in your opinion, that they can successfully exhibit their dogs in an event like this, where there's space crunch, time crunch, and attention crunch, of course.
So first suggestion, the logistics of just loading and unloading and getting the shuttle and making it back to the hotel and all that thing. Have a second person because that
Right.
will help you out tremendously. It's a bench show, so the dog is sitting on the bench all day. If you have a
Yeah.
second person, so you can take a restroom break or go get lunch or whatever, it makes all the difference in the world instead of being
Yeah.
paranoid that your dog is there on the bench by itself while you run to the
Right.
restroom and somebody's going to reach
Right.
in its crate or something, right?
Right.
So that's the
Happens more often
suggestion.
than you know.
Exactly.
Yes.
And my suggestion is if you want to take a dog there, do a dry run before you ever think about going there,
Yes.
right? So you know where everything is and you kind of mapped it out logistically so it'll make it easier for you when you take a dog.
Yes, sir.
Two things. Whether it's a national, Westminster, Royal Canin condition, don't show up unless that dog is in condition and don't show up unless that dog is trained. So
Right.
take time with your mentors, go to training classes, socialize your dog, make sure they are in top form before you show up.
And what about the presentation in the ring? Like grabbing the judge's attention, presenting the dog to the dog's advantage. What tips could you give them for that?
That isn't really a problem. The interesting thing is, one of my Doberman friends, she actually posted something on Facebook about that. And she's like, the handlers were amazing. German Shepherds are dominated by professional handlers because
Yes,
obviously
that's
old
true.
farts like me, we can't run. So we let the young ones do it. And so for that reason, presentation is never an issue. I think they
Sure.
all did a magnificent job. Even some of the novices. There was one young lady who was a little self-conscious, and I kind of put her at ease, and she had a good time. And I'm like, don't worry about, the small, sweat the small stuff. Just show your
Yes.
dog to the best of your ability and
Yes.
absorb this experience because this is 150. It will only ever happen once in history.
Yeah.
Enjoy everything about it and
Hmm.
do the best you can.
Awesome. And what do you hope judges across the country internalize when they step into the ring with this breed?
Mm, you don't need to massage them. Gate them as much as possible and go back and watch the temperament test.
Right. Perfect. So looking ahead, has this experience influenced your future decisions as a breeder, a judge, or a mentor? Of course, it's a cliche question, but I gotta ask it.
uh, Not as a breeder,
Hmm.
not even so much as a judge. It's just a affirmation that I know that I'm capable.
Yes.
Um, and then as a mentor, yes, because what you don't realize is like this interview. I wrote some critiques for the Chronicle. I answered some questions for Showsite magazine. After the
Yes.
show's over, it doesn't stop, right?
No.
It's
No.
almost as if internally, and you put this pressure on yourself, you have a moral and a responsibility, not just to the sport as an advocate, but to the Westminster Kennel Club as part of that honor of judging to follow up. If you get media questions, if I get questions on social media, people asking me about a temperament test or they want to apply for my breed or they're just watching and they want to understand why we do what we do. I need to explain that to them. Don't get upset.
Yeah.
Just realize that it comes from a place of curiosity and naivete. And it's part of our job as a parent club is to educate people, right? Whether that be judges, whether that be communities, whoever, just answer the question. Be patient and
Yes.
answer the
So now that you say that, it just occurred to me. I saw even by some GSDCA members or like longstanding people in the community, some I completely you completely get these questions when somebody completely naive who's never had a German Shepherd in their life that they're looking at, oh, they're like this or they're like that. It's like, okay, you don't understand what you're looking at. That's fine. We'll educate you. But people that have spent decades in the breed and they write stupid things on the internet. It's like I'm trying to guard my words, but it's just unfortunate. How do we like tackle as a community when they're like trying to eat our own? It's just something that really bothers me.
Well, here's the thing. So there are some people that I even know, like, I grew up in a decent sized town, but there are some people who grew up in a small town.
Yeah,
They may have to drive 2 hours for confirmation class. They don't have anybody around them. They really don't have access to mentors. Maybe they don't know. Maybe no one
right.
ever taught them. And so there is no such thing as a stupid question, with the exception, and it's not even a stupid question. Sometimes somebody can have a malicious question. Like if you take
Yes,
someone who I know has the expertise and they just
yes,
say mean things just to say mean
yeah,
things,
right, exactly.
then that's kind of out of bounds and out of order. But in general, even some of the people who've been around for a while, they don't know. When I
Yeah,
first started, there was a couples in my local German Shepherd club, and they had been in it 30 years and never had a champion. But back in
right,
those days, you had entries of 200, so you were happy
right,
if you placed in your class. And
right.
so the competition level was different, and there were a million professional handlers and a whole bunch of big breeders, and it was just hard to compete. They wanted to participate, and
Yes,
so maybe they didn't have a mentor, maybe they never achieved anything. And if you want to bring other people forward, because I look at it this way, unless
yeah,
other people breeding good dogs, I don't have a good stud dog to breed to, right?
yes, true,
So
absolutely.
I want to bring as many other people up and along as I
Yeah,
possibly can because I want them to succeed so we can diversify the breeding program.
I find it really frustrating when there's enough destructive forces outside pure for against purebred dogs out there that are against our sport, that are against our way of life with our dogs and all that stuff. And then you have these people that are sitting within the club, that are sitting within the community, that are sitting on the ringside trying to eat their own just to sound cooler or better or whatever. Or maybe they're trying to sell a freaking dog to somebody. I don't know. That they want to appear as, and it just, it's horrendous. And it's a really bad look for them.
Here's the thing. I understand what you're saying, and I
Yeah.
expect it, right? I've even got some of that. I had some people to like, oh, you're not fit to judge a national. I would tell them, go watch the video.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
because I have seen people, there was one judge, breeder judge in the national, there was an AKC rep, it's like '08 or something, who had
Sure.
lines in the middle of the ring. So ring procedure
Uh-huh.
was not good. If an AKC rep would have been present, they would have addressed that situation.
Yes.
Forgot some dogs in the corner. So like just because you bred forever and you could have produced some good dogs doesn't mean your ring procedure is good. Doesn't mean
Right.
you can evaluate a dog. Doesn't mean you
Yep.
can do a temperament test correct.
Right.
I've seen people take two dogs down and back, and I know you guys, the European working shows, do that kind of stuff. In America, if you were to do that at an all read show in front of AKC rep, you will get raked over the coals. So like you don't know
Right.
how many times I have had to pull a breeder judge to the side. May she rest in peace. When Joanne Corbin was judging, she came in, she judged the local Aubrey show part of a Futurity weekend, and the AKC was yelling at her because the first thing you do when you're a permit for a breed is go check in with the rep because they have to observe you and you want to have that
Sure.
dialogue. And
Yes,
so,
sir.
as a matter of procedure, how you do things makes or breaks people assessment of you, right? And so how you handle your ring, how you treat exhibitors. So
Yep.
just because you have the knowledge doesn't mean, and I've even seen
No.
it like breeders that have done futurities and stuff, it's just a matter of procedure. It gets kind of messy. So help them when you can.
Yes.
Don't pick at them. First, give them the opportunity, the benefit of the doubt to learn. Because, like I said, sometimes you don't know what people don't know. So just bring them
Right.
along.
Absolutely.
And I only saw one comment on Facebook from one gentleman who has been in the breed forever, who had something negative to say, and
Yeah.
my response was my response.
Yeah.
I will happily rise to the occasion and answer the call. Like I'm not going to back down. And I'm going to tell
Right.
you how this is going to go. With
Right. No, that was
and
beautiful.
I can do that respectfully. I don't have to swear
Yes.
at you. I don't have to gear at you. I can just ask you a few simple questions I know the answer to already. And if you don't know the
Yeah.
answer, you will have told me everything I need to know.
Absolutely. 100%. And it's just like your mother should have raised you better at that point. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
how do you see the American Shepherd moving on from that? How do you see the American Shepherd evolving over the next decade? And what must be guarded carefully to protect the breed?
So we've got to work together. There's like five of us left, and we have to do everything. We have to put on dog shows, be members of clubs. We have to be on committees and parent clubs. And it's exhausting to have to be everything to everybody all the time. But we
Yes.
don't have a choice because we don't have a
No.
lot of new people. So we've got to support each other.
Yes. Absolutely. 100%. And this growing together is the only way forward, I feel. Maybe it's another podcast in the making that we can talk about ring procedure because I'm really interested in finding more about this stuff.
I teach that stuff a lot. And even if I'm a member of Oregon Dog Judges, and so it's a lot of all breed judges, and we have a like a monthly, or
Yeah.
it's an internal, but we have a monthly like Zoom meeting or whatever. And so tomorrow, Wednesday, sometime coming up,
Right.
we're doing like a mock interview. So newer judges that
Yes.
are coming along are people who want to apply, know how to navigate the interview process. We do like a
Yes.
mock interview. We can practice so they
Oh,
can
that's
see
wonderful.
what questions you're going to ask and how to answer
Yeah.
them. You know what an AKC rep is looking for. No
Hmm.
one knows this stuff
Right.
unless some people like us put it on, right? So
Right. Right. 100%. And in closing, I'd like to ask you, like, for the last question, you put on that Facebook post about the structure, the movement, and all that stuff just a couple of days back. Could you please talk about that, why you did it, and what exactly it encompassed?
So I had some people, and I don't think they know. Some of them from other breeds, maybe some of them are not even show people. They were behind particular exhibits and wanted to
Right.
understand my logic, without badges in a particular dog, because I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that person. And as an exhibitor, I don't want somebody to do that to me. But to
Yes.
explain to them, like we were talking about types of movement and things that we saw in generalities that aren't really correct, and they need to
Right.
understand that and why those decisions were made that way. On the line, standing this particular exhibit may look good to you, but if they're doing this, that's not correct.
Right.
Across the ground, not up and down.
Yeah.
If you lift and the foot is
Paddling.
under your neck,
Yeah.
are you really reaching?
You're going really fast nowhere.
And so I had questions about movement. I had questions about the temperament test. I know one gentleman is very respected in the herding group that had asked me a question on Facebook about that. And he's, I think, going for his license, right? So I
Hmm.
want him to know how to do it because he's going to have to do
Absolutely.
it at some point, right?
Absolutely.
So it was a perfect forum to disseminate information in a non-confrontational way or pinpoint an individual where everybody could get access to it with diagrams and video and all the kinds of things so they could learn at their leisure.
That's fantastic. I really love, again, not to glaze you or anything, but I really love how involved you are with teaching and mentoring people and bringing them into the fold instead of putting up guardrails and excluding people. Because you see a lot of that. It's like, oh, I got in somehow. Now I'm going to pull the ladder up and show you how much better I am, and it's abhorrent. But
Instead,
it's really refreshing to watch you do all this stuff.
Instead, someone comes to you and says, I have this opinion. Okay, why do you feel that way? What
Right.
is it based on? What is your experience? If you tell me you work with dogs, like I have a friend, and
Right.
Doberman friend, and she used to do bite work and stuff, and she used to do
Sure.
shits and work and IPO. So she's been around a lot of German Shepherds and stuff. She's like, explain to me the heads, because the dogs that I see at those are very
Right.
different. I was like,
Yes.
well, here's the thing. The standard describes the head in a certain way, but whenever you breed for
Right.
purpose, you get
Yes.
divergence. The
Yes.
dogs that do
Absolutely.
search and rescue are more like Malinois. They're like the check
Right.
dogs. They're lighter in body because they need to
Yeah.
stay on top of the rubble pile.
Right.
Am I going to say that they're wrong?
No.
Their structure is correct for the
Right.
job that they're doing, right? If you're
It's
going to
on
have
a
a bite work,
spectrum.
yeah, as a spectrum, as
Yeah.
long as they're of reasonable type. You guys
Yes.
want a dog with a strong muzzle and a good grip and a good bite because they do a lot of bite work. We want a
Right.
dog that can trot all day because, like, I have dogs that we do herding trials. So
Yes.
you got to be able to tend. I'm less into the bite work, so I select for a
Sure.
certain thing. You're going to get a little divergence. It's like
Right.
comparing a wide receiver in football to a linebacker. It depends on
Right.
what their job is. They're
Absolutely.
still a
Or a
human
kicker.
being. They're still a human being. They're still a
Right.
reasonable type. But
Yes.
based on the job function that they carry out, you're going to get a little this way, a little that way. And like we said, there is a place for all of those dogs because you may have a dog that may need the virtues that that dog has. So
Yes.
at some point, you may have to use them in your breeding program. Don't count them
Right.
all out.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. And it's like even there's a I don't want to name any dog so we don't look like we're talking about favorites. There's a dog that I recently went. It's a common friend of ours. So I went to her place and saw that dog do herding, and that female was phenomenal, just powerful, just running very efficiently, going all day. And it was in the middle of the summer, sun, like it was really hot, and this bitch was on fire. Like she was great, and she had great breed type. She had obviously finished her championship, and she is, in my opinion, a high caliber dog that can win both in AKC and in German shows, as far as I'm concerned. She had a strong, powerful head, correctly built, still very feminine, and the body type was exceptional. Because again, it's a pastoral breed; it has to move, it has to be on the perimeter, and she was very effective. Like there was no high stepping, there was no butt going down as the front reaches up, completely flat to the ground, extending backwards and forward. It was a sight to behold. It was what the German Shepherd's meant to do. So, on that note, I thank you again for your time, sir, and maybe we can talk about the ring procedure in the next podcast.
Sure, happy to.